Hey, 42 here. The world is like a high school playground. Depending on their ideologies and cultures, the various countries tend to form cliques and shun others who aren't a part of their special gang. Since World War II, a handful of international alliances have sprung up that have segregated the world into distinct globalised entities, each believing that they are defending the world from evil or protecting a certain way of life. There's the UN, EU, WTO, UNESCO, NATO, CMF, African Union, Arab League, and that's just a tiny number of examples. Every country seems to have more alliances and treaties than they have brands of beer. It can be incredibly complex attempting to keep up with who likes who and which countries want to blow each other up. So, which of these high school gangs would be the most likely instigators of World War III? Well, as current world affairs and political tensions stand, there are three obvious scenarios that could lead the world down the dark path of global warfare. The first instigator could be China versus the US. China desires to fully retake Taiwan and expand its territory throughout the South China Sea to secure safe channels for its fast-growing blue water navy, and to erode America's military grip on the region. China has even gone as far as building artificial islands in the South China Sea to put military bases on. China's expansion, economically, geographically and militarily, poses a serious threat to the global hegemony of the US, currently the only superpower. America is unlikely to sit back and let China overtake their #1 spot on the world stage without a bit of a fight. Tensions between China and the US are increasing by the year, and it could soon blow up, quite literally, into World War III. The second spark could come from, you guessed it, Russia versus the US. The Russian bear wants to be seen as strong on the global stage, and that illusion of strength was panged after the fall of the Soviet Union. Russia deeply desires to retake lost states such as Ukraine. It also feels constantly threatened by the growing power and membership of NATO, its largest and most formidable opponent. Putin-Trump tensions could throw the world into a dark abyss of global war. Lastly, the Hermit Kingdom, North Korea, could instigate World War III. Despite Kim Jong-un agreeing to denuclearization at a summit with Trump, it's believed there are in fact 13 secret nuclear facilities in North Korea, and their recent blatant missile tests over Japan are hardly reassuring the world that North Korea aren't looking to arm themselves to the teeth with nuclear warheads. Then there are a handful of other ongoing tensions that by themselves could instigate World War III, such as India versus Pakistan. There's persistent tensions with Syria, and bad blood between Iran, Britain and the US. Some experts believe current world tensions are greater than during the Cold War. In truth, nobody can predict if World War III will happen, and if so, when it will happen. But what would a third world war look like? Albert Einstein said, "I know not with what weapons World War III will be fought, but World War IV will be fought with sticks and stones." Indeed, in a nuclear-armed world, World War III is a terrifying prospect. But could a nuclear Armageddon actually happen? Yes, of course it could. However, it's extremely unlikely. Most experts agree that even if World War III kicked off, the chances of a nuclear missile being launched are quite low. Why? Mutually assured destruction. All it would take is one ICBM to hit a NATO country, Russia or China, and the full force of America or Russia's missiles would be launched in retaliation. Basically, in this scenario, every possible path leads to all world powers being utterly annihilated within the space of a day. Heads of state may seem erratic and even stupid at times, but they all understand this essential premise. You destroy us, we destroy you. Nuclear weapons may be the endgame of a world war, the last desperate play of the losing side, but I don't believe they will come at the very start. Most likely, there will be an instigator event, followed by a steady escalation of force. But the real question is, in what form will that force come? Warfare has changed substantially since World War II. The days of trenches, front lines and armies, and even tanks are long gone, a relic of the past. And modern weaponry has made large numbers of foot soldiers less impactful during warfare, though they will always be needed in some format. We live in a world where an operator can sit in an air-conditioned room on the other side of the planet and command a drone to deliver a laser-guided Hellfire missile into a building or mass of persons, killing hundreds with a single strike. We live in a world where aircraft supercarriers are equipped with surface-to-air missiles, railguns that can hit ground targets over 220 miles away with incredible precision, and freaking laser guns. Boots on the ground is still an essential tool for any nation and can be utilised in a multitude of ways, but in the Third World War, vast land armies would be far less effective than they were last century. And human warfare will be more special ops based, used to take out high priority targets with skill and precision. Since nuclear weapons aren't really usable in the real world without destroying the entire planet, navies are the greatest weapon that world powers have at their disposal. Specifically, aircraft carriers. An aircraft carrier is a formidable floating military base that costs over £5 billion to build, and the running cost would make your head spin. As a result, very few countries have aircraft carriers. Only the UK, Italy and the US have more than one at their command. The US actually has it written into law that the Naval Command Forces of the Navy shall include not less than 11 operational aircraft carriers. But any Navy's immense power and immense costs are also its greatest weaknesses. In a real-life wartime scenario, any commander-in-chief has to consider risk and costs before sending an aircraft carrier or destroyer fleet into the heat of battle. The problem is, if they make a tactical error and lose one or more aircraft carriers, not even America can click its fingers and conjure up a replacement. These behemoths take over 5 years to build. Modern supercarriers are by no means easy to attack. They are flush with weaponry and designed to repel enemies with ease. But if a rival state was able to engage a carrier fleet in combat and had the means to sink it, then the results would be devastating and a certain game changer. After all, no matter how well protected a capital ship may be, all it takes is one lucky shot from a torpedo or an anti-ship ballistic missile like the kind that China has recently developed, and with that one strike, down goes billions of pounds and years of work, and for some countries, their only carrier and primary means of defence, leaving the doors wide open to attack. Not to mention the loss of critical experienced military personnel. When ships sink, they have a nasty habit of taking the entire crew with them. When HMS Hood was sunk in 1941, 1,415 of a 1,418 strong crew perished with her. Since supercarrier engagement is extraordinarily risky, even for America, as the old adage says, the bigger they are, the harder they fall, they will most likely be used exclusively for defence in a future war. Therefore, world leaders will seek a lower risk offensive strategy. And there is one method of warfare that is extremely low risk and low cost, but the rewards could be immense. I'm talking about cyber warfare. Every major world power has invested heavily into state-sponsored hacking, even if they don't like to admit it. Because they all know the truth. A nation that can effectively hack another during wartime would have possibly the greatest upper hand of all. Cyber warfare is at its most terrifying when it has the power to affect physical infrastructure and weaponry. A WikiLeaks report revealed that the CIA has been hoarding zero-day vulnerabilities for just about every operating system, including Android and iOS devices. Zero-day vulnerabilities are basically keys that a hacker can use to freely gain access to a system, and the system developers, in this case Google, Apple and Microsoft, the world's largest tech companies, have no idea that they exist, so hence they have 0 days to react to the hack. The CIA was stockpiling these zero-day keys and using them to develop deadly cyber weapons, similar to the Stuxnet malware that artfully infected an Iranian nuclear plant, inflicting major physical damage to its machinery. It's believed that the CIA, NSA, GCHQ and MI5 have cooperated to develop an entire suite of similar cyber weapons to Stuxnet. Unbelievably, the world's 4 leading intelligence divisions don't go about their day broadcasting the details of their latest creations. But it's believed that they have created malware that can infect pretty much whatever they like for a variety of purposes. All the way from smart televisions and smartphones used to spy on people, to the onboard computer systems of cars and trucks, which could be utilised to steer them off the road or disable them entirely. And you just know that if the US and UK are working on such weapons, then so are Russia and China. But the most chilling target that these state actors could direct their cyber weapons towards is infrastructure. The infrastructure that enables our modern lifestyles and keeps countries afloat, from the road network to the banks, the power stations, water filtration, law enforcement and healthcare, all run on computer software, and so, in theory, can be hacked and disrupted. But hackers taking down public sewer systems or stopping consumers from being able to use their debit cards isn't going to take down a rival government and win a war. Or is it? During World War II, both the Axis and Allies ran long and devastating strategic bombing raids. The purpose of these was to demoralise the everyday citizens of the respective countries, to degrade their enthusiasm for war to such a point where they would no longer have the stomach to continue fighting or supporting the war effort. Those bastard Nazis could never crack the British spirit, but had the Blitz gone on for another few years, who's to say that they wouldn't have? In theory, this style of attrition warfare is a highly effective strategy for when a nation cannot outright penetrate the military defences of their opponent. And it's in this exact same manner that cyber warfare would be used in World War III. Cyber warfare is cheaper than carpet bombing and can affect a substantially higher number of people. Public infrastructure is far easier to hack than military equipment because the computer systems that run infrastructure are either severely outdated or connected to the public internet. Whereas military installations are usually always isolated from any form of public network, which means that the only way to hack them is with physical access to the facility. Mind you, that didn't stop the US when they infected the Iranian nuclear plant with Stuxnet, which was also isolated from the public internet. Interestingly, military facilities usually use outdated computer systems on purpose, because so long as they aren't connected to the public internet, they are less susceptible to modern day hacks and bugs. The US Department of Defense recently announced that it has only just stopped using floppy disks to store data in some of their military facilities. So, this begs the question. What if a rival state is able to do the highly improbable and access the isolated military facilities of its enemy? Then the sky is, quite literally, the limit. A malware could be pre-programmed to launch nuclear weapons when it detects that it has successfully infected the target facility, and it could aim those weapons within the target country's own borders, effectively forcing a nation to commit suicide. Another deadly weapon that will change the face of a Third World War is drones. Unmanned aerial vehicles are already used by NATO forces to perform frequent precision strikes on ISIS strongholds in the Middle East. But what if smaller, more agile and less obvious drones were militarised? I'm talking about the drones consumers buy to film pretty scenery from the air. Drone warfare is a serious threat that global think tanks are getting all worked up over, and for good reason. Small-sized military drones pose one of the greatest threats to humanity during both peace and wartime. The United States Department of Defense is currently working on a project called Perdix, which aims to give every soldier on the field a personal micro-drone These small devices could fit into a soldier's pocket and be deployed into the air in seconds. Once airborne, each soldier's drone communicates with every other drone used by the same squad, and each one taps into a single shared brain to form a swarm. The swarm could coordinate their movements in real time and alert each other to enemy locations and defensive systems that could threaten the swarm. Perdix drones have been undergoing real-world testing for the past few years. Currently, their only intended use is visual intelligence and scouting ahead for enemies. But there's nothing to say that guns couldn't be attached to them. When combined with artificial intelligence-driven targeting, which the US DoD is also currently developing, then these armed micro-drones make for an almost unstoppable and terrifying weapon. In only a few years, these swarms of drones could be shooting down human targets, and those very targets could be chosen automatically by a computer algorithm inside the swarm's shared brain. I'm sure not many sane people would mind if this technology would be used to protect our freedoms, but the ugly consequences of terrorist organisations getting their hands on this technology could be utterly devastating. Whether World War III will be fought with bombs, missiles, guns, computer viruses, or drones, one thing is for certain: it will be more terrifying than ever before. Every major successive war in the past 2 centuries has increased in both duration and brutality. We live in a time when computer code can cause more devastation than a nuclear weapon, and that's not something to be taken lightly. All we can hope is that the world continues to move away from war and towards peace. But whilst you sit back and wait for World War III, you can keep yourself busy by improving your online security with Dashlane, who have kindly sponsored this video. Dashlane is a password manager that automatically creates bulletproof passwords for all your online accounts and autofills them so you never have to click Forgot Password ever again. Using the same or similar passwords for different websites makes it super easy for hackers to access your entire online world. But Dashlane creates a unique, super strong password for each account. Dashlane also fills your credit card information whilst online shopping, so you can make purchases without even having to fetch your wallet. And it works seamlessly across all your devices. It has a built-in VPN with country select, so you can access any content, stay secure, and protect your privacy at the same time. With Dashlane, you'll be alerted if any of your accounts or data are breached. It also has a dark web monitoring system that will immediately let you know if your personal information appears on the dark web, where it can be seen by hackers or spammers. But wait, is this safe? What if Dashlane gets hacked? Well, it's actually safer to put all your passwords into Dashlane than if not using the password manager. Dashlane safely stores and decrypts your data on your local device only, using your master password. So in the rare instance that a hacker did breach Dashlane, they wouldn't even be able to see your passwords because not even Dashlane has the keys to decrypt them. From my experience, Dashlane is the best, all bases covered security and time-saving tool out there. And if you visit my unique promo link in the description, you can get a free premium trial of Dashlane for 30 days. Plus, if you enter 42 at checkout, you will get 10% off Dashlane Premium. Thanks for watching, and thanks again to Dashlane for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to check them out using the link below.